our first podcast, we're going to be talking about the books that we've sort of read over the last few weeks. There's myself, Sharon, and I'm chatting with Gav and Lesley about the books we've liked. Might even throw in a few books that we haven't liked.
Yes.
But today probably we'll stick to what we do
like. That's a good
like.
idea.
I think that's an excellent idea.
That's a good idea, yeah.
So
it's easier.
So the one that I read fairly recent was called The Parisians by Marius Gabriel. An author I stumbled across actually because what he does when he writes is he interweaves history into the story. So this particular book had a lot about the war, so Hitler and all Hitler's kind of cronies. Coco Chanel was in it. I think they do take a certain amount of poetic license, to be fair, but I don't.
That's forgivable, I think.
I think so. I don't like history. In fact,
I do.
So do I.
right.
I love history.
Well, but you see, I don't know if you would like it if you're really into history, because I can read them and I have absolutely no idea what the truth would be.
Yes, because I don't remember Coco Chanel being part of Hitler's
Well,
closest.
in the book, she sort of is like one of the collaborators.
Okay. Now, you see, I might be learning something here. Maybe she was.
Maybe she was. Maybe we just didn't know that.
Well, maybe. And I certainly wouldn't know because I studied geography. Not history.
Well, I read The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich recently, and Coco Chanel wasn't in it at all.
Oh, well, maybe not then. But it's quite interesting because I've actually read about 5 different books by that author, and they all follow that same sort of pattern. So, one of them was about the ship that goes down.
Titanic?
That one.
The Titanic.
That famous one.
Yeah, that famous one that I can't remember. The Titanic. And so he always has a certain amount of historical fact in, and then he weaves the story around that.
I like that.
So do I. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
That is,
So, I don't normally read that type of book. I normally very much, chick lit, haven't got much time to read, so I tend to read something that's quite a quick fix. But actually I found them, because if a book doesn't grab me by like page 10, I'm not reading it. But I did find that this was actually, it really did grab me. The stories are very consistent across the board. So that was what I read when I was on holiday. And, I could definitely recommend
I like when, fiction's based in, there's some truth to it to a degree. Yes, it gives you a little bit more reference, doesn't it, I think?
Yeah.
Rather than, if it's high fantasy, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, then that's, it's a very different world. And it's sometimes a lot of people struggle to really enjoy that because it's too far reaching. Yeah, it's too far away. Yeah. Whereas this, I think, I maybe enjoy. I might have a look at that.
Yeah, as I say, I stumbled across it. I don't even know why I picked one.
But sometimes that's the best why, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just come across it and you think, okay, let's see how this goes, and then you find that leads you onto something else, onto something else.
Yeah, no, it was really good. So I would definitely recommend Marius Gabriel. If you want that kind of book, kind of based in history. I wouldn't test me on my historical knowledge.
I was just about to.
Definitely not.
I read one recently. It was Joanna, Courtney was author, Blood Queen. Now this was a bit different, set in Scotland, 1020, time of King Malcolm III. So, and it really gives you a whole new take on Shakespeare's Macbeth. Everybody kens that story. So this was a whole different take for the female perspective. Just for something different. I think I did recognise the author's name, but I'd never read something about her before, but the Macbeth thing really intrigued me. I thought, right, okay, memories of Shakespeare's Macbeth at school, let's read this and see what it's like. So just a bit different.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, I do read a lot of historical stuff, but maybe nothing set as far back as that.
Yes,
Because I don't think I've ever read a book that far back, or set that far back, ever.
No, it just appealed.
The historical fiction's become really popular in recent years, isn't it?
Massive,
like Wolf Hall, for example.
Wolf Hall,
has been hugely. Hilary Mantel has been hugely popular, and that's and obviously she takes some artistic license because you can't know what conversations really go on.
They add in characters, or they tell the story. You get the historical fact based around an individual story.
Yes,
and I really like something like that. You can almost see them there looking in if it's happening. And it's
and often, you know, the fact is often stranger than the fiction,
That's
and,
right.
and more amazing in many ways. So
just
that
love
that yeah, I like that as well.
Philippa Gregory, Alison Weir, she is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
So probably fair to say that you do actually like quite a lot of historical fiction.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Whereas I'm probably less so.
Yeah, I don't read so much fiction these days. Used to. If a series catches my attention, then I will.
You will,
But I tend to read, you know, non-fiction.
Oh, right.
And one of the books I'm bringing to the table today is Scotland in the 70s, the definitive account of the Scotland football team from 1970 to 79.
Yeah.
I can see Sharon is absolutely
Yeah.
distraught, and Lesley, you're delighted.
Yes, well, I mean, you know, that kind of ranks up there alongside history. For me, football history.
Oh, this is history, all right. Yeah.
Probably not going to happen.
So this book, Scotland in the 70s, is written by Ronnie McDevitt. It was actually published this year. And he'd written his previous books about the 60s, the Scotland football team in the 60s, which I haven't read. And I'm much more interested in the 70s. Yeah. I do just about remember the 70s.
Well, I remember them quite well.
I was like 7 in 1979. So I do have some memories of this, but obviously not to this kind of detail. So he starts off in 1970 and discusses the actual matches themselves. It's really, I know, it's kind of, for somebody who's not a football fan, that sounds just the worst, doesn't it? You know.
I did go to the World Cup, to be fair.
Did you?
Yeah.
I remember you doing
Which
that.
one?
When it was in France.
France, 1998.
And we get knocked out by Brazil.
Yes.
And so I was at that knockout match.
Brilliant.
And, so although I don't follow football,
yeah,
and I certainly
you were there.
I wouldn't read about
so
it.
here's
I was
someone
there.
who loves football, who's never ever been to a World Cup, and there's someone who doesn't like football and was at the World Cup.
You're not as old as me though. You've still got time.
Right, I'm saying nothing. So the book it looks at the Scottish football team throughout the 70s, which for anybody that doesn't know, we actually had a really, really good football team in the 1970s, and certainly in 1978 when we went to Argentina, we actually thought we were going to win the World Cup. We really believed it.
Yeah,
and we did. Yeah, but that was the
goal.
Great game. Yeah, the greatest goal ever scored, Archie Gemmell against the Netherlands in 1978 in Argentina.
Biggest goal let in, Jim Leighton.
Yeah, well, we won. You know, poor Jim. He's a great player for Aberdeen. He was fantastic. So this book, I mean, I must admit, after the first few pages, you're thinking, oh, do I really want to read about every single match? And it includes things like the under-23 internationals and the interleague games that they don't play anymore. But a few chapters in, and I was really kind of hooked, and I found it fascinating, and I learned an awful lot about the Scotland football team. What I found the most fascinating, though, is about really in those days, footballers were just like we are. Really, footballers today are multi-millionaires.
Set on a pedestal.
They are, and they've got nobody. They're very different. They live different lives.
They have an entourage.
They do. They're on hundreds of thousands of pounds a week and whatever. But these players were just normal people. The wages weren't great at all. The money wasn't that good at all. Certainly in Scottish football at that time. So there's some really good examples that I really laugh at. That Bobby Brown, who was manager, I think got sacked in 1971, and he's coming down the steps at Hampden, and the journalists will ask him, saying, "Oh, Bobby, you must be devastated. You've lost the Scotland job." He's like, "Yeah, well, it's a bit of a blow, but to be honest, I own a gift shop in Helensburgh, and I make just as much money at that." So it was a different
You just don't
time.
expect that.
Yeah,
do
you
you?
owned like a wee
Just-
cafe and a gift shop in Helensburgh, and that was financially just about the same for
Same
him as it was being Scotland's football manager.
Yeah. But I think they were more accessible then as well.
They were,
I can always remember, is it my dad knew, is it Davy Cooper that
Oh,
played for
absolute
Rangers.
legend, great player.
And he knew him and his father. And I think these people were just more accessible. I think they are less so now.
Oh, completely.
And I suppose nowadays they all have individual books out about themselves and their lives, and it's not really about the true nature of the game.
No, it's not. It's completely changed. I suppose they're more like kind of rock stars nowadays, really.
Look at
than
Messi.
sports people.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear the crowd going. I mean, that's what they chant, and it's just. I mean, they basically just worship it.
Yeah, a remarkable player, of course. But
talented, no doubt.
Oh, no doubt.
and then the other story I'd like to pick out, and obviously it covers the two World Cups, 74 and 78, and that's probably the most fascinating chapters, if I'm being honest. But the other great story I like is a game against Scotland versus England in Wembley, and then unfortunately halfway through the game, one of the Scotland supporters runs out and clobbers Alan Ball, who was the then captain of the England team. I say, give it, he clobbers him, and Alan Ball wasn't a big guy, but. So anyway, the police take the guy away. Now today, there would just be, there'd be all these news stories about this terrible incident. But what Alan Ball did was, after the game was, he said, gee whiz, what a passionate supporter. I'd really like to meet him and go for a pint. And that's what they did.
It just would not happen.
They met up a few weeks later, had a steak dinner and a couple of pints.
What do you think?
What a difference, is it?
Totally different.
Totally.
A
different
world.
lifetime then. Different lifetime.
So I highly recommend Scotland in the 70s by Ronnie McDevitt. It is, obviously you need an interest in football and obviously the Scottish football team.
But then it might get you interested in football by reading that.
It might do. But certainly, if you don't...
convincing her.
Well, I think if you're into football and reading all about it, I think that, you'll love this book. I think probably if you're a bit more like me...
you might not.
Possibly not.
But we want to have something for everyone. So,
absolutely.
yeah, it's highly recommended, but unfortunately it does reaffirm us as being the great losers in Scotland, in world football. We've always just missed out. We've always just been one goal away from qualifying or from getting further in competition.
Difference, yeah.
But we lose well.
We'll support them forevermore, though.
Totally.
Of course.
The book I'm reading just now, The Golden Atlas, is about different explorers. It's about actually the maps. It sounds really boring, doesn't it? Just a book of maps, but it's actually really interesting.
I think maps are really, really fascinating.
Yeah,
because
especially
sometimes
old
if I'm
maps.
reading something, I would like to see a map and then I can work out myself for such and such a thing happened, or.
I do like that.
I do like that.
Yeah. Now that book I'm reading just now, and it's about lots of different explorers, and that's The Golden Atlas: The Greatest Explorations, Quests, and Discoveries on Maps by Edward Brooke-Hitching, and that is got stories about all the great explorers. And so so you're getting a different story each time. It's not just about one person. So I like that.
Told from whose perspective?
So it's told through the stories of the maps. It's about how the maps were created and the timelines and how because often they got map. Making was a difficult process when you didn't have GPS.
Yes, exactly.
Technology. So it's really the story told through the maps, really. And I really enjoy it. So I've not actually quite completed it. It's one of those kind of books, because it's split up in years and explorers, you can put it down for a couple of weeks and then pick it back up again. And,
No, I like the sound of that. Yeah. I like to hear a map at the start of a book, even if it's a fiction book.
Yeah.
And to be able to refer back to maps, family trees, if it's something historical. I love that, just coming back and forth. Right, can I just double check who this was and what the relationship was to him? And is this a dotted line or a solid line? Love it.
Okay, so the very thing I miss out on any books like that. So it's like some of these, I have read like Penny Vincenzi, who are big family sagas, and they always have the map and they always have the family tree, and I literally just completely ignore it and head straight to the story. I never look back at it.
Got to check them out.
Now. Yeah.
You've got to check. You've got to hear the maps and the family trees.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's great that everybody's so different in that way. But I'm with you, Lesley. I like a book with a map.
Oh, I do. Even if it's a fictional map, if it's something I read something just after Christmas, House of Ghosts, set on an island, a fictional island, kind of Agatha Christie-ish. W.C. Ryan was House of Ghosts, and old-fashioned type of thriller. Everybody arrives on this island for a spiritualist gathering. So the guests arrive, then the storm hits, so again, put two and two together, murder then ensues. But you had the map,
classic,
classic crime.
Yeah.
With sort of supernatural element in it as well.
Okay.
So it was
So
really
would I have
interesting.
known what was going on when I would have immediately
You
missed
would
all
have
that
needed
map
to look
out?
at the map.
I would never have looked at
The
the
map
map.
was there at the front, and you'd have the important buildings. And
You'd have been just lost in that. You'd
I
have
know.
no
You
idea
would
what's
have had a
going on.
clue. No,
Well, I tell you what's terrible for that Game of Thrones is trying to work out when you read the books, trying to work out who is where and what they're doing. And,
Yep.
that's
Are
so
they Marine or are they Westeros? If it says
yeah.
fits that.
Yeah.
And all the names are quite similar, to be fair.
They are.
And that was one
something,
I had to have my son explain to me on a map, literally, and he was like, "So this is them."
Yes.
and it's really because I'm not good with maps. So that's just obviously the issue.
Sounds like we're picking on you today.
I think so. I know. Yeah, I'm poor with maps in real life. And I'm poor with maps in a book.
So am I, but give me a map and a book, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I
But I mean, I
get
do like
that.
to be lost in a book.
Oh, nothing better.
But you see,
Nothing
obviously,
better.
I'm being lost by not looking at the map. But but
no,
you know,
it's definitely-
getting lost in a
Yeah,
book
definitely.
is slightly different to being lost in the book
Yes,
without the
exactly.
map to help you.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've read, well, these last few months must be my Scottish Island or Scottish Wilderness or Historical Scotland period, because I've read so much of that recently. It's just, obviously, it's something I'm into just now. If it's set in an island, set in a coast, set in the in woodland or something like that, I'm there.
You're
Okay.
having it.
I'm having it. That's
Yeah.
just
Brilliant.
obviously what I'm looking at just now. Mountains, that's the other thing it's been this year. A couple of mountains. The mountain was at Luca, that was set in Italy. Again, it was a whole sort of scenario, the isolated village. Written for the take of sort of an army veteran, I think he was.
Okay.
Coming into the village, and then there was this whole, again, a murder. There's definitely something here,
Yeah.
I think.
Yes,
But
there's a
just,
recurring
again,
theme.
Italy as opposed to Scotland or
Okay.
Scandinavia. And for my reading just now, Sarah Maine, Woman of the Dunes, again set in Scotland, and it's got written for sort of 3 different timelines. You've got right back into Viking, Victorian, and present day. So you've got 3 different
Brilliant.
perspectives. So they're all linked.
So do you like that way? I mean, I often find it's quite interesting, you know, when you read the books, I've got all these different kind of strands in them. And sometimes it can be kind of confusing because I always tend to favour a strand. So I
Okay.
kind of like, I think, I don't really
Really
like.
enjoy reading that particular
Oh,
bit, but
yeah.
the
Yeah.
rest.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've done that in books plenty
you
times
do,
where
right.
there'll be several characters and you'll much prefer a storyline
Following
of
their
one or two of the
storyline opposed to
characters,
somebody else.
and you kind of race through the other ones to try and get it, and you think they just gave me a whole book of this.
Yeah, the one character.
But then you need the different timelines to be
Yes.
the entire story. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, you do tend to favour. Although I've seen so far, Woman of the Dunes, I haven't got a favourite yet.
Okay.
Possibly the Viking element, but
Okay.
I'd say it's early days yet.
So I think that probably draws us to a close in our discussions today of our books. We hope you've enjoyed this, and if you pick up a few tips there on what to read in the next month or so, we'll be back in a month's time, and we will be reviewing just what we've been reading over the last month. Thank you for listening.